Your president is watching. America is watching. But more important, God, Father, is watching. Make no mistake, there will be no fuck-ups. Marines around this world would give they left nuts to be where you are. Anybody not want to go? Marines, kill on 3. 1, 2, 3. Kill!
With a need to bleed you when the light goes green. Best believe I'm in the zone to be. From a yin to my yang to my yang to Z. Put a grin on my skin when you come to me. Cause I'll win, I'm a one of a kind. And I'll bring death to the place you're about to be. Another river of blood running under my feet. Forged in a fire lit long ago. Stand next to me, you'll never stand alone. I'm last to leave, but the first to go. Lord, make me dead before you make me whole. I feed on the fear of the devil inside of the enemy faces in my sight. Aim with a hand, shoot with a mind, kill with a heart like Arctic ice.
I am a soldier and I'm marching on.
I am a soldier and I'm marching on.
I am a warrior, this is my song.
I am a warrior and this is my song. I'm basking the glow of the rising war. Lay waste to the ground of an enemy shore. Wade through the blood spilled on the floor. And if another one stands, I'll kill some more. Bullet in the breach and a fire in me. Like a cigarette thrown to gasoline. If death don't bring you fear, I swear you'll fear these marching feet. Come to the nightmare, come to me. Deep down in the dark where the devil be. In the mall where the jaws and the razor teeth. Where the brimstone burns and the angel weeps. Crawl to the gods of across your path. And my silhouette hangs like a body bag. Hope is a moment now long past. The shadow of death is the one I cast. I am a soldier and I'm marching on. I am a warrior and this is my song. My eyes are steel and my gaze is long. I am a warrior and this is my song.
We're not just going to shoot the bastard. We're going to cut out their living guts and use them to grease the treads of our tanks. We're going to murder those lousy bastards by the bushel.
Now I live lean and I mean to inflict the grief. And the least of me is still out of your reach. The killing machine's gonna do the deed until the river runs dry and my last breath leaves. Chin in the air with a head held high. I'll stand in the path of the enemy line. Feel no fear, know my pride. For God and country I'll end your life. I am a soldier and I'm marching on. I am a warrior and this is my song. My eyes are steel and my gaze is long. I am a warrior and this is my song.
All right, folks, we made it to Friday. Now let's get to work.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, live from Pittsburgh Studio Number 1, it's Cold War Radio. Here's your host, Hutch Bailey Jr.
All right, folks, we made it again. Here we are, Cold War Radio number 903. Welcome, and thank you for choosing Cold War Radio, the Cold War Radio patron hotline, 412-206-6208, the voicemail, 412-567-1460. Please go to steelcityresistance.com. Let's try that again. Please go to steelcityresistance.com. Why'd I pick such a multi-syllable name for a website anyway? SteelCityResistance.com. Become a Cold War Radio patron. Catch the research room, the video page, and if you'd like to write to the program, write to Cold War Radio, P.O. Box 10433 370, Castle Shannon Boulevard, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania 15234. All right, the Cold War Radio VFW chat room is in full effect. Let's welcome Jack from the northern neck of Virginia to the program. Hello, Jack.
Hey, Hutch. Good to be here. Another hot week. It is starting to get steamy around the country, and it looks like some heated situations happening on the rise, even though the media is trying to play it down.
Oh, indeed. And we got a wicked storm that came through, a really quick one. But, man, it cooled things down like almost 30 degrees, man. It's beautiful now. But in the 90s,
outskirts of that storm that's raging up?
Yeah, just the outskirts of it. We actually had a front coming in from the west and the sea, so they kind of converged here. But it was a much-needed downpour. It wasn't as steady as I wish it would have been, but it lasted about, I guess, a half hour, 45 minutes, something like that. So it helped a little bit. I mean, the grass is just barren all over the place. Let's while we're talking about the chat room, though, in case anybody, we have some new listeners or whatever, let me just introduce some of the people that are in the chat room. Great people.
And Tommy and me, and there was Anthony Stabile.
How you doing?
Frankie Carbone. And then there was Mo Black's brother, Fat Andy. And his guys, Frankie the Wop, Freddie No Nose. And then there was Pete the Killer, who was Sally Balls' brother. And you had Nicky Eyes.
What's up, guy?
And Mikey Francesi.
That guy, yeah, I want to see him.
And Jimmy Two Times, who got that nickname because he said everything twice, like...
I'm gonna go get the papers.
All right, so there it is, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the chat room. Upstanding group of folks. I'm just kidding. Hey, we had some, every now and then, as the show develops, we end up being in the right place at the right time. So let's break some news, Jack.
Yes, you hadn't noticed, there's a little bit of rumors or potential news about the president commuting Roger Stone's prison sentence. Well, it's been confirmed. It's a done deal. The president has commuted Roger Stone's prison sentence, which is, I think, the way that when I last saw Roger Stone speaking, he wanted it to be a commutation. That way he could still fight with his lawyers to basically just get the whole thing thrown out. As if you remember, this is Roger Stone was the one that had the SWAT come and bust into his house in the early dawn in Florida, and CNN's van just happened to be at his house at that same time.
All I can think of, Jack, when I think of things like that, I think of the way Roger Stone was treated. I think of the way that Michael Flynn is still being treated by this Emmett Sullivan moron. That's amazing.
I've never seen this in my life. But
no, nobody has, because it's never happened.
The whole legal spectrum. You look at what the SCOTUS did. They basically kicked the can back down to the lower courts. Didn't end it, right? So it's going to continue with whatever. But they did tell Congress, no, you're not getting his his tax records or his papers, whatever they were trying to get. And it just goes on. You look at everything, the entirety of the President Trump's administration from day one until now, everything he's tried to do, you look at it.
Now
There's somewhere down the line taking the case to court. I mean,
let's clarify something. Let's clarify something right now. Everything that has been done to President Trump is being aimed at you and I, folks. This is not about President Trump. President Trump is one dude. He's one guy. He's a very exceptional guy, but he's still just a guy. This is about us. They hate us, ladies and gentlemen, and we'd have to get some leaders in there that understand that. Not that are really their friends under the table, like Lindsey Graham's under the table. Not like that. We need somebody to stand up and correct this. This has to be corrected.
And it has to be from the Congress. You know, that's where all this stuff gets passed, introduced and passed and sent up. The president signs off.
It has to be done in the DOJ first. The Department of Justice is the department that is falling down right now. Now, maybe they have something, but by God, timing matters. Man, it's been 3 years. You know, this is out of control. This Barr and Durham, they got to get this figured out soon. I mean, if they let this go past the election, then just forget about it. It's all phony. It better not. It better not.
They walked it, and they've been doing this. I mean, I saw articles about the Durham thing saying maybe they're just going to just pull back and wait and see who wins.
Yeah, I know. I heard that too.
You know, we discussed that it's not just the left. You know, there's so much that's on the right in the Republican Party that is against the president.
Senator Burr, Senator Graham, Senator Cornyn, Senator Toomey. I mean, they're everywhere.
Burr stepped down from his slot.
He should be in prison.
Right. There should be some cases going on.
Not because of the money. He should be in prison for running this coup. Everybody on that Senate committee should be. I don't care what party you're in.
He's an intelligence committee in the Senate. Right?
That's the strongest committee in the country. Those senators are collectively more powerful than anybody else. And we allowed that to happen. And they're bad guys that are in there right now. They're Chinese people. They're people that have banked their entire lifestyles on China and sending our jobs there. And if you don't believe me, drive in and out of any city in the Midwest or in the Northeast, any small town outside of the Democrat ghetto cities. But just drive through any small town and 3/4 of the stores are boarded up, Jack. You know, I travel a lot going to my camp, and every single town is like the last one. All these jobs have been gone. You see skeletons of plants remaining, and train tracks and stations, and oil tanks and things like that. It's just horrible.
Yeah, and you look at where we were, and I go back to the end of last year when in New York the governor signed off on the law basically that said we're not going to the no bail deal. Boom, arraigned, you're arraigned, and you're set free. And it was like that was a feeler thing because you started getting some news out. Like one guy went out, robbed a bank, arrested, arraigned, released, robbed a bank. I think he did it 4, maybe 5 times. And when that happened, you didn't see an outrage from New Yorkers. Just like, what the hell are you doing? You got this guy. He's done this. You got the evidence. Keep him in jail, right? Don't let him do any more harm. Well, no. Then they started unleashing or releasing any of these people. Some have actually for a violent crime and then gone out and actually killed somebody
or intimidated the witness or the victim. I mean, these victims are still out there. You imagine, you get beat to the ground and you prosecute the guy. You do what you're supposed to do, go to the police, and he's out in an hour.
Right.
He knows where you live. If he doesn't know where you live, he could probably ask the court.
Helping you out. And then you had China with this, the China plague, as President Trump likes to call it, unleashed. That was like, I think the earliest I've seen the sourcing was late November, possibly, that it was released. or out in the wild, and it hit hard here in the beginning of this year. All of this leads to one thing. This is the election year. This is the deep state, the globalist effort, their last-ditch effort. I guess they think if President Trump wins a second election, they're not going to be able to hold him back.
Well, I think they're right. I think they're right. I don't think they won't stop trying. But you've got these Democrats. I don't see how any thinking American could back these Democrats. I just don't, but they do. I mean, I've seen there's Biden signs in my town, in people's yards. I mean, I can't imagine putting that guy's sign in my yard. I just would not let everybody know I was that stupid or that brainwashed. I mean, this guy is he's a cadaverous guy. He's not even alive.
Every week it's like pushing the envelope further and further left, further and further away from the founding principles of this country. And that's exactly the plan. They want to push so far because so far, there's not a complete and total outrage. I mean, there's a lot of people upset about it, yes. But they've got a bunch of brainless people that are just falling for this stuff and falling in love with this stuff that, hey, you've got, we're going to cover some more angles of what the far left and the Democrats are pushing as we head into the last 4 months before the election.
It's getting close.
Yeah.
We've got a good guest for you tonight, too. Hopefully we can hook up with him, a legal analyst that'll help us through some of these commutations and Supreme Court decisions and whatnot, and see maybe he has some insight on the Attorney General's action or inaction or the probability of something coming out. I really hope something comes out of that, because if it doesn't, you got to think about this, Jack. Now I know that we've been bombarded with information overload for years. I know that, especially doing shows. But in retrospect, this is the worst crime in American political history. The worst crime. I mean, think about what happened. Think of the depth of this. And that might be the reason this is taking so long, because I have to admit, I do trust Bill Barr. Not stupidly trust, but I want to have faith in him that he understands the gravity of his position right now in history, in world history. Because if this goes unpunished, the country's changed.
Yeah,
it's done.
The dominoes have to fall on. You look at the frivolous and the deliberate politicization of the DOJ in regards to the Trump campaign, and you don't have to go too much further back to have a weaponized DOJ, IRS against Tea Party folks. If you remember that, folks, there was nobody that was held accountable. They had Lois Lerner in there, right?
Yeah, and, I mean, the idiots in the United States Army
not in jail,
are now calling MAGA a white supremacist potential. I mean, I think we need a purge in the military. I do. I think these officers they suck. They absolutely suck. This group of officers that we have right now is so afraid of their own shadow and so brainwashed and so politically correct that they're dangerous to the nation.
Yeah,
I think he should go in there.
They're protecting their part of the pie too.
Well, he should go in there. He should make them all. He should fire them all. He should pick a certain rank and fire everybody over that rank. He's allowed.
All the people that are independent, all those top dogs in the Pentagon.
Get rid of them all.
Yes.
Immediately.
You look on all the TV networks, and you're going to see former, top-notch Pentagon general as a paid spokesperson.
Sure.
Right? They speak on behalf of the military-industrial complex.
Hell, that Captain Kelly, the husband of the congresswoman that got shot, he's an astronaut, and he was selling things to the Chinese. I mean, this is out of control. We need executions. Let me explain something to everybody here. I saw this the other day, and I never really thought about it. But in France, you have leftist revolutionaries. In Venezuela and Bolivia and everywhere else, you have leftist revolutionaries. In Italy, all over Europe, leftist revolutionaries. Well, guess what America has? Right-wing revolutionaries. That's what we are here. That's who founded this country. when the right wing gets pissed off, and it doesn't take everybody. I think it was 13% or maybe even 3% of the original 13 colonists actually took arms in the Revolutionary War. But the right is who revolts here when this leftist bile gets too thick. And don't underestimate that potential, because it doesn't take everybody. All you got to do is look at the African separatists that were down in Stone Mountain, Georgia the other day. Those aren't Americans. Those are Africans. You don't do that in Georgia. You do that in Zimbabwe. You get dressed up in different uniforms and stand against your own country. You don't do that here. You don't get to be called an American when you do that here. I'm sorry.
Well, you see that running rampant in our House, the Congress of the United States with the Squad. If you look at that and look at what Ilhan Omar has been speaking about lately, that is not American. And here is a person that has thrived, given her opportunity in this free country since she was rescued from, I think it was Somalia, right? Somalian.
That was Ilhan Omar, not AOC.
That's what I'm talking about, Ilhan Omar.
And what fools, what idiots would elect somebody from the same country that destroyed Somalia to represent them in Minnesota? How stupid is that? Are you trying to make Minneapolis into Mogadishu? Because it's working. You saw
that during, bringing the refugees in and like placing them in certain strategic areas. I remember during the 2016 election that former President Bill Clinton and I think another potential surrogate of Hillary Clinton, when they were talking about Detroit, they said this is prime real estate for the bringing the Syrian refugees and repopulating Detroit and letting the Syrians have it, basically.
Unbelievable. I remember that. I remember that vividly.
Remember that? Yeah.
And that would be great because guess who lives there now? The Iraqis. So go ahead and go at that. Dearborn can look even better than it does now. But they are sly. The left-wing political group Black Lives Matter is seeking support in Congress for radical legislation that would, among other things, close all federal prisons and immigration detention centers. That'd be a good idea. The bill would eliminate federal programs and agencies used to finance and expand the U.S. criminal legal system, such as the Department of Defense 1033 program, the Edward Byrne Justice Assistance Grant Program, Community-Oriented Policing Service, the Drug Enforcement Administration, and Immigration and Customs Enforcement, the bill states. So, I mean, these people really, really, really want to destroy this country, Jack. I mean, this isn't even fantasy anymore. This is just out there in your face, and I'm praying for the country because I believe this has to be, we were talking about this on Wednesday, this has to be just a tidal wave election. There has to be more people in this country that love it than hate it. Or there wouldn't be so many people trying to get in.
Right. And what they're counting on right now, they're counting on like this is a complete all-out blitzkrieg attack on the senses. There is so much going on in the news cycle that all this, they've elevated the BLM to national status, taking down monuments, whatever. They're allowed to sit there and protest wherever they want to because of certain reasons, but other reasons, that all Black Lives Matter only in certain situations if you're referring to that group. But what I'm saying?
Did you hear Pelosi? Did you hear Pelosi? I mean, talk about a pandering statement when asked about the Columbus. Now, mind you, she's Italian, right? Asked about the Columbus statue getting torn down in Baltimore. She basically pointed at the black people and said, "Oh, people do what they do. I don't care about statues." It's like, really?
I mean, it's a few years ago we had the riots, in Baltimore, and the mayor basically said, "Oh, let them blow off some steam." And you've gone so far with that, the way the left handles it. You have right now, de Blasio in New York basically saying nobody better do this against everything but Black Lives Matter protests. They can do whatever the hell they want in my city. And we already saw what happened in Seattle when that mayor said we're going to have the Summer of Love and let them take over a few blocks of that city. So, and you add on top of that what I was mentioning earlier with the New York State basically not keeping suspects in prison, or eliminating bail and allowing them to go out and be lawless again. You see what's happened. I mean, the rise in crime. They're like, hey, they're letting us run the streets now. It's our streets. We're going to run it. And criminals don't pay attention to the law in the first place. But now you're going to have the people saying that the law enforcement and the courts aren't going to follow the law either. Then, hey, boom.
Yeah, and they're going to, the first thing they'll do is they'll try to prosecute anybody that tries to defend their own property. They don't like you having property. They don't even think that's your money. They think that's their money. If you talk to them. I mean, I don't know what happened in New York. I don't know if Benito Mussolini planted a seed in New York Italians, but between Cuomo, all of them, all three of them, Mario, Chris, and the governor, and de Blasio, and Pelosi. I mean, are these little Benito Mussolinis running around?
I mean, New York's home, like that's East Coast headquarters of the mainstream media, New York City, right?
Yeah.
Many of the
and Madison Avenues, where all the Nike commercials come from. All your Chinese friendly CEOs. I mean, that's another thing. This whole CEO business is ridiculous too, man. The way they cave. I mean, Major League Baseball, I didn't see any of the offending tweets or social media posts, but they say that the MLB has caved to all this Black Lives Matter stuff. And if they did, then baseball's dead too. I refuse to participate in any of this.
There's one left.
If hockey does it, I'm firing them too.
That's the last one. It's the NHL, because NASCAR did it via the mistaken garage door pull, supposedly is a noose, to, I mean, the whole thing. And what was the news about Kaepernick? Is signed a multi-million-dollar deal.
Really?
With Disney, I think. Wasn't it?
Yeah. Oh, Disney's great. They're another company that's just great.
It is.
I mean,
it's a full-on onslaught to destroy the United States of America, folks.
It's not going to work, ladies and gentlemen. No. Stick to your guns. Keep your powder dry. Don't sell your stocks, even though Joe Biden wants to get rid of any stockholders in businesses anymore. He wants to go full Czechoslovakia. You know what I mean? I mean, this guy he's out to lunch. I don't know if he really knows what he's saying, but every day he comes out, he goes further and further to the left. I mean,
build back better. I mean, what the hell is that?
I have no idea. I don't know what's going on with that guy. I mean, I think it's cruel.
Be taking up too much of your time, folks.
I think it's cruel that his family. If my wife ever does that to me, somebody shoot her. There's no way that he should. I can't believe that she lets him out there like that. Can you? I mean, you're married. Can you imagine?
I don't think they have a choice. I don't think they have a choice. If you look at his 50-year history of being involved in all this, he's, they basically said, you got to do what we say you're going to do. And that's all she wrote.
You have a very good point there. That is highly likely. When you look at how dirty his fingers are from being in that Chinese cookie jar and the Ukrainian cookie jar, and can you imagine what he got out of Iran? I mean,
and China.
You think he didn't get a kickback out of that? This scumbag. You think him and Obama gave them billions of dollars and didn't get some back? That's not the way it works, ladies and gentlemen. It's not. It's just it's nuts watching this, and sometimes it can really get you down. But I want to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, if it can't continue, it won't. There are some laws going on here that this many Americans are not going to just allow our country to be given away for free at the detriment of the majority of the population that happens to be white. this is going to have an ugly ending if it's not ended properly in legal ways. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. John O'Connor is an experienced trial lawyer practicing law in San Francisco since 1972. He has tried cases in state and federal court throughout the country, served as an assistant U.S. attorney in Northern California from 74 to 79. Let's welcome John O'Connor to the program. Welcome back, John. I'm Hutch Bailey Jr.
Hey, how you doing, Hutch? Yeah, good to hear from you.
Oh, just great to have you back on, especially during these times. I mean, we've got so many legal questions coming at us. We had to get you on here to straighten our heads out. I mean, with this, I guess the most breaking news is that Roger Stone's sentence has been commuted. Had you seen that?
No, I did not see that. And did President do it?
He did. Jack, why don't you fill him in with some details?
Yes, he commuted. The president commuted this Roger Stone's sentence. I think, like we had talked earlier, I think Roger Stone had said he wanted, if it was any action, he wanted it to be a commutation, so he could still continue to fight to get the case thrown out on appeal. But you would know much more about that than I do, Mr. O'Connor.
Well, let me say this about Roger Stone's original sentence. Everybody got upset when this guy Zelensky was asking for 8 years. And I will tell you, as a prosecutor, I've never seen anybody expect to get that kind of a sentence for lying to the FBI, a first offense, first time. You're usually talking about 3 months at a country club prison, all right? Now, he ended up getting 40 months. I think Barr was in a position where he couldn't really ask for anything like that, a year or half a year. That's really a more appropriate sentence. So justice is done if his sentence is commuted. As it was kind of a silly prosecution. And there's some real questions in my mind as to whether this special counsel investigation was ever properly predicated, and whether there was a conflict that required it. And furthermore, whether you can do a special counsel investigation where the investigation you are giving to the special counsel does not start out to be a criminal one, but starts out as a counterintelligence or national security investigation. So people did not make that distinction. James Comey knew it well and hid it, as did Andrew McCabe. But let's look at it this way. We're near the Second World War. Our intel agencies are looking at where the spies are. And let's say, as they're looking at Russia and England and all these places, they think, there may be somebody in Roosevelt's administration who may be giving up secrets. Does the Attorney General then say, something? I'm taking this entire investigation away from Roosevelt and anybody else. I'm not going to let him see any of our intelligence pre-war because there's a conflict. Well, the fact is there is no statute that allows for a special counsel other than in a criminal investigation. So it was wrong for the special counsel to be involved in this at the beginning. If there was any basis for a special counsel investigation, it was for a very defined act of firing James Comey. I did not think that was a crime, but I understand it. You could say, well, maybe it is. I'll give it to a special counsel. But then you've got a very defined scope of investigation for this guy. And furthermore, guess who can't work on that? Who can't work on it is Rod Rosenstein, who's a material witness, Andrew McCabe, who's a material witness, maybe even Bob Mueller, who was a material witness at the time. So what they did is they got this far-ranging grab of jurisdiction that was improper. And then they went out and they just decided they would indict whoever ever spelled Russia in their geography class. Okay, so it's really, they shouldn't have done it to begin with. This whole thing is nonsense. And I thought Roger Stone got a bad deal. Now, do I think he lied? Yes. I think he lied. He was covering up for a buddy. He probably promised him he wouldn't give him up. And to a certain extent, all these guys were rattled because Comey was out there accusing everybody of being a Russian agent. So nobody wanted to say they knew anything about emails or anything about Russia. So it's a Comey special. He kind of frightens everybody into lying, and this is another example of it. So I think justice is probably done here. In spite of all this, you can't lie to the FBI, and so maybe Stone deserves something, but this was a bit harsh.
Yeah, I think we'll let him off with time served after that raid on his house at 4 a.m.
Yes.
I want to ask you something just from a layman's perspective. I know you have extreme exposure to this with Watergate and everything like that, but it seems to me that, I'm 58 years old, and I'm watching this, and I've seen the wheels of justice in government before, and even down to the local level, and it just seems like nothing's going anywhere, John. Is there something behind the scenes that you could enlighten us with as to why this is taking so long and not one person has been perp walked yet, except for some child molesters, but nobody involving this treasonous coup?
Well, here's the problem. The treasonous group, I think you're talking about Comey and Company, right?
Yeah, anybody that was involved in taking the president down. Even the Republicans on the Senate Intelligence Committee. I don't care who it is.
But remember this. If Hillary would have been elected, none of this would have ever come out. It was
true.
Very late to come out, and it was like pulling teeth. All the agencies were using all their powers not to give up documents. This book by Lee Smith talks about it, how Nunes was after this stuff for 2 years. They were doing everything they can to drag their feet. You had a lot of stuff that's under the cloak of secrecy, even though it's really plotting in an illegal way. They're not going to give that up. How much stuff do you think has not been given up about what John Brennan and James Comey and Peter Strzok are talking about way back then? So it necessarily, when you have a government agency doing this, it takes a lot of time to unravel. Now, the second thing that's happening here is the guys like Comey and McCabe are already setting up their defenses. They say, oh, my gosh, we were so high above this. We didn't know, Mrs. Cleaver, gosh, Mrs. Cleaver, we didn't know there were false statements in the FISA court.
Alger Hiss. Who's Alger Hiss?
But
they my gosh, Mrs. Cleaver, I'm a very honest man. I didn't know this was happening. And, of course, they knew every bit that Comey and McCabe arranged this whole thing. Now, can they slip out of it on the grounds that if nobody else is going to rat them out, what can the government do? So I don't know to what extent they're going to get Comey and McCabe. I think I have my own theories as to what I would do, and I would indict Comey if I were in charge of the world here, because he did not give information to Trump and Flynn when they came into office. And if you have a counterintelligence investigation, the entity, the people in charge of that investigation, because it's national security, are the president and his national security advisor. So ironically enough, while they're trapping Flynn and then later trapping Trump, they're not giving them the information that they're due. I think that's obstruction of justice. They know the Susan Rice memo states, and Obama states it, everybody states it, that they have to share information about the Russian investigation with the incoming team. That's Trump and Flynn. We're not talking Attorney General stuff. We're not talking about crimes, bank robberies. We're talking about a national security counterintelligence investigation. That memo says it, that it should be given to the incoming national security team. And Comey was the guy that they were pressing at that meeting to give it up. And Comey's telling the president, when he's asked by President Obama, are you going to not give this up to Flynn? And Comey says, quote, potentially, unquote. That means, hey, I just might obstruct justice. That's why Susan Rice wrote the memo. As she's going out the door, she realizes there's a 6'8" tower of slime that's not going to give up that information. And she doesn't want her fingerprints as being one of the authors of that, nor does she want Obama's. So she writes that memo, which actually, as I look at it, I think it's probably pretty effective in saying that four of us thought that Comey should give up this stuff. And one of them, Comey, looked like he wasn't going to do it. And President Obama told him he should do it. But, guys,
we're doing this. The president said, let's do this by the book. She says,
Right.
And this
Well,
is after
remember this.
President Trump took the inauguration, the oath of office. She wrote that as
Well,
the final
well,
thing.
right. But remember what was by the book. It's interesting when you read the memo. There's no. They talked about these two parts that I'm talking about. So I'm not making this up about the difference between a law enforcement attorney general proceeding and a national intelligence / national security investigation. They spend about 3 seconds saying, "Oh, we're going to do the attorney general's thing by the book." No hesitation, no discussion, no quarrel. We're going to do that one by the book. Then Obama says, "Now, as it relates to national security, gosh, does anybody see why we're not going to give up information as to this Russia investigation?" That is the elephant in the room they're all discussing, and they know that Comey is going to try to trap Flynn and Trump. And they're saying basically, "Okay, Comey, we think you ought to give it up, and you tell us if anything changes, And I think what they mean by that is changes to Obama's suggestion or direction to give it up. So I think that memo proves that 4 people thought it was a good idea to give it up. One of them, who had the information and whose power it was to give it up, didn't give it up. 3 of them were out of office as of noon on the 20th and didn't have power, Rice, Biden, and Obama. The 4th one, Sally Yates, is sort of on record as being flabbergasted when Comey sends McCabe over to question Flynn without any warning, without any heads up, without telling him about the Russian ambassador's conversation. She knows what's going on. She knows Comey's, the sly, sneaky guy, is out there trying to trap Flynn, and guess what? It worked. So I think if I were king of the world, I would indict Comey on obstruction of justice. Now, is that going to happen? I don't know. I don't know if they're thinking that way. They may just be looking at the FISA applications, start of the investigation, that whole thing, as opposed to what I just talked about. But I think that's a big deal. Now, if you're talking about the FISA, I think people like Peter Strzok, this guy who changed a letter from the CIA, I forget his name, a lower guy.
The attorney, right, that changed the...
Right.
Then you have Rosenstein, right? He basically said,
Right.
"I just signed off on it. I didn't read it." Yeah,
You know,
right.
Yeah, you know who says that? A defendant
Right.
who says, you can't put me in jail for being stupid or negligent or lazy. I guess I was stupid and negligent and lazy, and gee whiz, Mrs. Cleaver, I certainly wasn't a criminal. So he's probably off. I don't think Rosenstein should get it, but the people who put that forward, I think Comey and Strzok and McCabe knew that this Professor Mifsud was a Western intelligence plant, that the Sergei Million, the source D&E for Steele, was a nobody and a nothing who knew nothing, which it all came. They knew that. And as a matter of fact, at some point before the election, the FBI started paying source D&E. I don't know how long they were paying him. The FBI was paying Steele. They were right involved in paying Hillary's witnesses. They were paying witnesses. In February 2016, they're already paying Steele before the dossier came about. So you're looking at a lot of dirty stuff here that really gets me riled just to think about it. But I would say that anyone who knew about this falsity should be indicted. And when I say falsity, it's failure it's failure to disclose to the FISA court, concealing, suppressing, whatever you want to call it. That's a lie. If you did that on a prospectus within the SEC's jurisdiction, you'd be in jail. You know, if you did it to a contractual partner, you'd be at least you'd have a big judgment against you.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, they actually engaged and utilized part of the Five Eyes. The British had a team inside the United States during the election season because the conflicts with the CIA and the FBI can't target. They had actual the British intel side of the Five Eyes following some information on, like Carter Page. He was approached by
Halper.
I believe,
among
Halper
others,
and the young lady that actually served time and went back to Russia. She was like with the NRA. Butina.
You have Butina. Yeah, what you find is you find all this stuff happening in England, and the reason you find it there is that the CIA is not constrained, nor is the FBI. You don't need a FISA warrant if you're over there. Now, let's go back to the December 15 text between the two Loverbirds. And Lisa Page asked Peter Strzok if he had gotten approval for Oconus lures. Now, Oconus lures means outside continental United States, luring somebody into a favorable jurisdiction so that you can either wiretap them or arrest them, as the case may be. In this case, they were looking to trap people way back in December of 2015 when they got a phony tip. I think it was from Estonia. And lo and behold, when George Papadopoulos shows up on the list, it's like manna from heaven. They send so many people in to poor Papadopoulos, who happens to be in London. He wonders, there's a parade of FBI agents disguised as other people. Then, of course, this guy Halper tries to get, he does get Papadopoulos back over to London, but he also goes after Stephen Miller. They go after Carter Page. They have a guy named Henry Greenberg that's got a Russian accent, and they try to, they offer emails to Roger Stone for $2 million. Well, that was a setup. And by the way, I'll tell you another setup. It was getting young Trump to that Trump Tower meeting. That wasn't the Russian government that got him in there. Yes, there was a Russian lawyer associated with the Russian government that came to the meeting, but she was really involved with Glenn Simpson of Fusion GPS, but for this Magnitsky Act. But the whole way the meeting was set up with all these promises of dirt, that didn't come from her, nor her law firm, who knows how to set up a meeting. She knows how to set up a meeting. And now all of a sudden we have this guy, Goldstone, who talked to this guy, who talked to that guy, who talked to that guy. This was set up by Steele and Company, which probably included the FBI, to try to get it to look like the Trump campaign was receptive to dirt. That one worked. That's what they were doing with Papadopoulos, trying to make it look like they were receptive to dirt. They wanted Papadopoulos to email back to his campaign, oh, my gosh, I can get these emails that Clinton has. All these people are trying to trap people. I think the Trump meeting, there's no way we can get discovery of who set up that meeting. I don't think. But I think that was a phony, too. But all these meetings were phony. The CIA and FBI were paying a number of people to just trap people, and they never came up with anything. That's the worst part about it. They get to wiretap Trump, and they can't get him on a parking ticket.
Nothing.
That Trump Tower deal. Veselnitskaya, and she was associated with the Fusion GPS guy. I mean, the whole thing.
Right.
All the wrong was perpetrated by the left, and
by the left. That wasn't the Russian government tripping in. And now there's some suggestion, if you look at the documents, that even as to this guy Sergei Millian, who was the phony source for the Steele dossier and was paid by the FBI, some people are thinking that he or other people were Russian disinformation. In other words, our government may have been so anxious to get Trump that they were paying agents who were actually Russian disinformation guys who were just trying to stir up stuff. Well, guess what happened? We spent 3 years on this stuff. And our country went through hell because of these grade school games played by our intelligence agencies. They're supposed to protect us. And what are they doing? They're out there straining every muscle to trap honest Americans. And not only they're doing that in the middle of a campaign to influence the campaign. They're trying to leak it. This is our government that's trying to do this.
Yeah, this is
then
out of
when
control.
you read the Mueller report, their best evidence is, without saying, somebody leaked Story X, and Trump started yelling. Well, guess who leaked Story X? And guess Story X was classified information. Guess who did it? Our special counsel or the FBI, one of them.
Right.
And then what they do is they try to make hay out of their leaks. So this whole thing has not been fully uncovered yet, but I think there's enough right now. You guys are asking the right question. Who is going to get indicted for this stuff?
Well, that's good. And I got a question or two more. I know we're running out of time. John, but I just got to say, ladies and gentlemen, Fox News has Solomon and DeGeneva, but man, we got John O'Connor. I hope you come back to Cold War Radio again, because you are clearly one of the most, especially for people that are not legal scholars. You really lay it out well, and I want to thank you for that. And I hope you come back. But I got to ask.
You, and I love your show. I'd love to come back.
Outstanding. You can be my legal guy. I mean, you explain things so clearly. I'm going to throw you a hardball now. A lot of us listen to these Supreme Court decisions that have come out lately. There's been 3 or 4 of them. And I have listeners asking, was the Supreme Court meant to be advisory, and has it surpassed its authority? I've got questions about whether or not the different decisions about his taxes were, which side benefits from that. You hear it spun so many different ways. Can you just break down a couple of the recent Supreme Court decisions and just help us out a little?
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to do this as succinctly as I can. The decisions were 7-2, but they were really 5-2 and 2. Gorsuch and Kavanaugh were more restrictive. They went along. They thought the cases should both go back to the court, but they didn't share the same free-for-all mentality that the 5 of them did. 2 of them, Alito and Thomas, thought this was all BS and the thing ought to be shut down right away. Gorsuch and Kavanaugh, I wouldn't disagree with if you had the right standards for the lower courts to look at. Now, here's the problem. One big problem is John Roberts is now joining the liberals so he can make it look like kumbaya, we're all getting together, this is the great Roberts Court. He is influenced by the media, terribly influenced. The decision about Congress isn't that bad. It's a separation of powers issue. To what extent can one branch intrude into the others? And you ought to have really good reason to do it. That thing is far from over. That should be litigated. That's fine to send it down. What really bothers me is the other issue, which is very important. You had a separation of powers on one. The other one is you have a separation between the states and the federal government. Now, there are 2,500 prosecutors in the United States with jurisdiction over their domains. Can each one of those decide they're going to investigate the president criminally and subject him to loss of liberty while he's in office? Are you kidding me? Yet the Supreme Court did not put any heightened requirements when you're going after a president versus going after John Doe. And that, to me, is a huge, in their efforts to get at Trump. And I think Ginsburg said something about sauce for the goose is sauce for the gander. Gosh, you deposed Bill Clinton 25 years ago in the Paula Jones case. We're getting payback. Well, I'm not so sure the cases are equal. But as long as the lower courts, in determining whether or not a state court action should, bother the president, you've got to weigh a lot of factors, and there should be the presumption that you can't interfere with the president during his office, and only in extreme situations should you have the right to get this stuff at a local level from the guy who's in charge of the federal government. Because you in the states, if this were the Civil War, be pre-Civil War time, every southern state would be, they'd be charging Lincoln with crimes.
Sure.
They wouldn't need a Civil War. They could just charge him with crimes, and let's see what you do about that, Abe. So it's the potential for mischief here is ridiculous. This will go down. And remember this, Trump is not going to get hurt by this because he's not going to release anything before the election. Trump, in their desire to get Trump, they hurt the country, and that's a theme you can repeat 20 times. Each one of these things, you can say the same thing. In their desire to get Trump, they are hurting the country, and that is what happened here, and that's the bottom line. I would tell your listeners that is huge, especially as to these state governments. It's one of the worst decisions I've ever seen.
All right. Well, thank you very much for that. One final question. What do you think about the activities of Judge Emmett Sullivan? I think his name's Emmett, with General Flynn. This is unprecedented from what I'm hearing from legal minds. What do you think about this guy?
Same thing. same thing. You know, he's really got to be in his bonnet on this one, and he should have looked. He looked bad enough the first go around. It was very unusual what he did, and there was a very learned decision in the D.C. Court of Appeals, written by a very liberal Obama judge named Sri Srinivasan, who's a brilliant guy. He was on a panel with two very bright other guys. And before this thing happened, they said, look, in this situation, Judge, you've got to take the deal between the government and the defendant. If the defendant likes it and the government likes it, you've got nothing to say about it. That's not your deal. You're not on the executive branch. You're not in charge of law enforcement. If President Obama wants to delay action on immigrants, he can do it. Now, he shouldn't be setting up a whole regulatory scheme, but if he just says, let's not prosecute immigrants this month, you, the court, got nothing to say about that. You can't say, oh, by the way, I'm going to go arrest some immigrants. I'm a judge. I want that to happen. You can't do it. And so what I would say is he is really going far, and who knows how politically he may be counting noses. He may have enough people that are anti-Trump on the what they call en banc, on the panel, that maybe he thinks he can win it. Maybe he's been counting noses, and he thinks he can go back and get at him. I think, once again, it's Trump derangement syndrome is screwing up our system. We're going to try to just to get somebody. It's the essence of immorality. The ends justify the means, and that's what's going on here. Sullivan is an interesting cat, but this one, he's got to be in his bonnet.
All right, John O'Connor, you wrote a heck of a book, really historic in nature, Postgate, how the Washington Post betrayed Deep Throat, covered up Watergate, and began today's partisan advocacy journalism. Where can people get your book, and maybe a little plug, a little teaser
what I would
for the
say
folks?
Is Amazon or my site, postgatebook.com, and what I promise your listeners is if you hold up the book in front of the Washington Post reporters, they have to genuflect, you know? Okay?
Indeed.
Because I think I pretty much show what they're about in this book.
Well, sir, thank you very much for coming on the show. We hope to have you back again. I really I enjoy talking to you. You really make sense. Thank you very much.
Well, thanks. It's been enjoyable. You guys are a blast, so thanks. Let's do it again.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. O'Connor.
Okay.
My name is Ronald Reagan. Last year, the contributions of 16 million Americans to the crusade for freedom made possible the World Freedom Bell, symbol of hope and freedom to the communist-dominated peoples of Eastern Europe, and built this powerful 135,000-watt Radio Free Europe transmitter in Western Germany. This station daily pierces the Iron Curtain with the truth, answering the lies of the Kremlin and bringing a message of hope to millions trapped behind the Iron Curtain. Grateful letters from listeners smuggled past the secret police express thanks to Radio Free Europe for identifying communist quislings and informers by name. The Crusade for Freedom is your chance and mine to fight communism. Join now by sending your contributions to General Clay, Crusade for Freedom, Empire State Building, New York City. Or join in your local community.
Ladies and gentlemen, your weekly Jihad Report. 37 jihad attacks, 165 killed, 70 injured, 1 suicide blast, all occurring in 12 countries. The religion of peace, atrocity of the week. Baghdad, an Iraqi analyst who was a leading expert on the Islamic State and other armed groups, was shot dead in Baghdad on Monday after receiving threats from Iran-backed militias. Gunmen on a motorcycle opened fire on Hisham al-Hashimi, 47, outside his home in the Zayone area of Baghdad, a family member said. Speaking on condition of anonymity for security reasons, the family member heard 5 shots fired. Other recent misunderstandings of Islam. On the 8th in India, terrorists fire into a shop, killing the owner and 2 family members. On the 7th in Afghanistan, a suicide bomber takes out 4 guards at a market. On the 6th in Burkina Faso, a mayor is among 8 killed when jihadists attack a town hall. On the 4th in Nigeria, a farmer and father of 6 is hacked to death by Muslim militants. On the 3rd, in Pakistan, terrorists spray the inside of a car with automatic weapons fire, killing 4 laborers. On the 1st, in Mali, a brutal attack on men returning from their fields leaves 16 dead. The religion of peace, ladies and gentlemen, or, as Mr. J used to say, the religion of pieces. Ladies and gentlemen, one body at a time.
Allahu Akbar, Allah.
It never ends, Jack. It never ends. And I got to tell you, I think we struck some gold tonight. I believe that John O'Connor is going to be Cold War Radio's new legal analyst. He seemed okay with the idea.
He's got plenty of experience. He got the book. I posted the postgatebook.com website into the chat room. And the answers, he seems to fall in line with patriotic Americans as far as what is going on in the deep state. I mean, I posted in the chat room, and it says, so far, it looks like those deep state folks, Comey and all them, can basically say mission accomplished.
Well, I'll tell you what I thought when I heard him talking about that. I didn't know that there was a rift like that between Comey and the outgoing people. I would suggest that we probably ought to get a letter of condolence together for Comey's family for his suicide next week.
I don't know. It just seems like, we've talked about it. It's been 50 years. This is how long it's taken for them to build this shadow government, for lack of another term, in our country, that they basically think they can run the whole show, unelected bureaucrats, people put in place, retired generals, think tanks, bill writers, the lobbyists. They think they run our country. And it looks like so far that we were right. They are, and they're trying to hang on right now.
You're right.
They're trying to hang on right now.
There's only one thing that's going to stop them. That's all that's going to stop him, Jack, is President Donald J. Trump.
Right?
That's up to us. You're absolutely right.
To America.
Now, you jumped the gun on me a little earlier on the show notes, but I'm going to clean it up right now. You talked about New York City and Mayor de Blasio, and this is going on in more than just New York City, and with more people and more fascists and tyrants than Bill de Blasio. There's lots of them out there, folks. But this is what he said was going to happen in New York when he was asked about parades and different public events. There's a skin color requirement.
Big outdoor concerts, and it means things like parades. Things that here in the city can mean not just thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. It's just not time for that now.
What about protests? If people want to march down Fifth Avenue, are they going to be allowed to do so?
Look, Wolf, this is always an area of real sensitivity. If you're just talking about health, we would always say, hey, folks, stay home if you can. But we understand at this moment in history, people are talking about the need for historic changes. I mean, today in New York City, recognizing the power and the meaning of the message Black Lives Matter, which we did in front of Trump Tower today. This is a historic moment of change. We have to respect that, but also say to people, the kinds of gatherings we're used to, the parades, the fairs, we just can't have that while we're focusing on health right now.
What about the U.S. Open? I'm curious. I love going to the U.S. Open. I love tennis.
That's what CNN cares about, the freaking U.S. Open.
U.S. Open tennis. Come on, Wolf.
What a moron. What a moron. You know what I'd do if I was the president? I'd vacate Trump Tower. I'd liquidate the son of a bitch. I would sell.
He's got to leave that there as in the face. But it's so sad to see the mayor.
What a jerk.
Of New York City go out there like a. I'm surprised that the roller brushes that they were using weren't plated in gold. It looked like one of the, where they groundbreaking opening and cut the ribbon. It looks like, we're going to build something here.
I'll tell you what's going to happen in New York City, man. And I hate to frame things like this, but they forced me, Jack. They forced me. It's not me. I'm reacting to the news. White people are not going to live in New York City, de Blasio. You're going to be the only one there. They're going to leave. They're going to think of their survival first. You're setting it up so any white person is a target on the street when you put Black Lives Matter on Fifth Avenue in Manhattan. Think about that. You people are fools. You are going to be, it's the new Bangladesh. Jack, nobody's going to go to New York. Nobody's going to go to Seattle. I mean, this is proven in the past. All you have to do is look at Detroit. This is going to totally eliminate any law-abiding citizens from living there, regardless of what color they are.
That's why I think this year it's all in by the globalists, because they're willing to sacrifice the cities that harbor and home their base, their voting base. They're willing to throw that kick it to the curb. Boom. We're going all in. We are going completely commie and whatever it's one thing to kind of, I look at it from a centrist point of view, right? In a perfect world for me, everything would be compromised and, each side would get a little piece of the action, but in the end, everyone benefits from it. That's my utopia, and I know that it will never happen. The same thing should happen if you're the farthest left or you're the farthest right. You say this is never going to happen, and even in dead center, it's never going to happen. But what's missing is the dialogue and the common sense, reasonable discussion of issues. You're either in the gutter or you're on the roof right now.
Right now, that's an argument, Jack, that was almost nullified, but maybe 20 years ago, maybe a little bit longer than that, there was a bona fide potential of that conversation. That's gone now. There is no centrist when it comes to this Democrat Party that we have today. I'm not talking about the Hubert Humphrey era. I'm talking about today, when you have de Blasio and you have Pelosi and you have Cuomo and you have Schumer and you have Sanders and you have Biden.
Hell, I think Jimmy Durbin. Carter would now be considered right wing.
Right.
If you look
that's my point. There's no centrist with these people. Right. These people must be defeated. They must be put in prison. They must be drummed out of office. They have to be prosecuted for their crimes. And I really mean that. I mean, this is something, you heard it in the guest. These people are doing things because they hate a guy that's trying to clean up the government. As Sundance says, there are trillions of dollars at stake, and these Republicans know it too. Sooner or later, Lindsey Graham's going to get exposed, and it's going to be a happy day. I hope he goes to prison right next to Comey. I swear to God.
They're picking and choosing politically which crimes will be enforced and which ones will be excused. Right. And that goes up to violent crimes, to even illegal immigrant crimes of murder.
It's nuts.
And you look at it, this is just slowly
and let's see where
we are.
Let's see where a lot of it came from. For years, American schools have been filled with leftist teachers and administration, unionized, by the way, more interested in indoctrinating students than teaching them. In October 2017, a Wyoming high school assigned a quiz with an answer about shooting President Trump. A teacher at a West Virginia school was caught wearing a Tuck Frump jacket in her classroom. And Tucker Carlson recently highlighted how wealthy universities that trash and censor conservatives were taking stimulus cash during the pandemic. The examples of the toxic nature of far-left bias in American schools is endless. On Friday, today, President Donald Trump threw down the gauntlet. Too many universities and school systems are about radical left indoctrination, not education. Therefore, I am telling the Treasury Department to re-examine their tax-exempt status and or funding, which will be taken away if this propaganda or act against public policy continues. Our children must be educated, not indoctrinated. I think that is the most righteous battle that we could engage in going forward, Jack, because they have polluted 2 generations of Americans.
Yeah, and you're talking high dollar. I mean, you're talking education.
And
they
bankrupted
pushed
bankrupted them. Right, bankrupted them too.
Yeah, but then
they set them up. They set them up to be revolutionaries. They set them up to go eat the rich. You shouldn't have to pay this back.
Right. Free school for everyone, the Bernie Sanders deal. And you actually have Ivy League, Harvard, basically said, we're not holding in-campus school next year. You're going to pay the price that you agreed to, but you're going to have to do it on computer, a distant learning deal.
I hope they bury him in litigation.
The Ivy League also basically threw out their entire the fall sports program. It's telling. I mean, you look at this has all been building from a pimple to a whitehead, just ready to burst now.
Thanks for sharing that. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But hey, sometimes it's ugly, and I guess that's as ugly as I could be on the radio.
I go back to my son's graduation from college, and I just watched that faculty come out on that football field, man, and they were so full of themselves. They were the ugliest, most misshapen people that I ever saw in my life, dressed up like circus clowns, and they just thought they were the smartest people in the world, Jack.
Oh yeah, well,
they really did.
You look at the pedigree. I often talk about the pedigree for presidential candidates, and you look at the history, and you look at who has the Harvard, Oxford pedigree. Like I think it's Clinton. I think Buttigieg. Remember, he showed up. Hank McMuffin. All of these folks that are in our face as far as politics at the highest level. Take a look at their history and see if they haven't been groomed. I mean, why in the hell do you have an Ivy Leaguer has to go to Oxford, right, in England, and then comes out back to the United States and suddenly is like thrust into, there's money backing this person because they're so well-rounded that they would represent our country in Washington, D.C.
And they caught an administrator at Harvard saying just today that, this isn't about classes and it's not about educating kids. This is a giant networking opportunity for self-thinking people. This is a pipeline, and Stacy knows about this, into finance and into media. Yeah. And the easiest degree to get in college is education. I mean, these are lazy people too. It's just 3 cheers for Mike Rowe. Is that his name? Dirty Jobs guy.
Yes, awesome.
That's a hero right there. I mean, if you're thinking about sending your kids to college, go buy them a truck. Teach them how to drive. Teach them how to plumb. Teach them how to be an electrician, and give some of those thousands of dollars to him or her, and let them buy tools.
Auto mechanic,
right?
I mean,
let them buy tools. Let them run a shop. You know what I mean? You don't need to spend this money on these communist idiots. There are no jobs for people coming out of these schools. It's ridiculous, man. It's just ridiculous, Gus. All right, let's go to Eugene while we're here and talk to Marlene. Hi, Marlene.
Hello, Hutch. Hello, Jack.
Nice to hear from
Hi,
you,
Jack.
Marlene. Stay safe out there.
Oh, I'm trying. All the Looney Tunes are up in Portland, thank God.
They'll get there soon.
Anyhow, I'm going to bring up an article in American Thinker. Basically, it says how Antifa and BLM compare with Satan. Basically, what the author is talking about is he's talking about John Milton's Paradise Lost, which I haven't read and I should read one of these days. He's talking about how that whole story parallels what's going on with these Black Lives Matter kids, or whatever the heck they are. Thugs is, I guess, the better term.
College graduates is what they are.
Yeah, I was leaning Lord of the Flies.
Yeah.
You know, that movie.
Yeah. You see, the basic story, though, is that God banishes Satan from heaven because he rebels against God, sends him to hell. Then Satan comes back to earth, and then that's where we get the creation, when man's fall from grace. In other words, Adam and Eve, he tempts them to eat the apple and all that stuff. And then he says, well, the modern version, the BLM is Satan, and the people they're attacking are the police, which are God's angels who were trying to watch over us. And the BLM is attacked, and they're getting all enraged and mad because somebody finally said no to them, and they're not used to that concept. They just don't get it.
Some of them need to get dead.
No shit, I agree. Excuse my French, but I agree totally.
I mean, the things that they do. I mean, they're going to keep doing it until somebody shoots them in the face, man. It's just the way it is.
I think you're right.
It's human nature. It's the way bullies are, for time immemorial. Until you beat them down, they're going to keep on pushing. And this is why I'm so disgusted with the cowardly character of the people that have elevated themselves into CEOs of our corporations. I mean, for them to think that they could have a multinational corporation without the power that they have behind them by being in America is beyond me. Their products aren't even that good.
Not
what
really.
I mean? And for them to eschew the entire, not the entire, but a huge percentage of their customer or patron base is just stupid and cowardly to me. I love Major League Baseball, and I love the Pittsburgh Pirates more than just about anything. And I'm not going to watch one game. They're done. As a matter of fact, I'm going to clear my house, my part of the house, because my wife's not doing this yet. She'll get there, but not yet.
She will.
Of everything Major League is out. And I'm going to put it in the front yard, and I'm going to say free. Come get it, because I'm not doing it anymore.
Yeah.
I'm not going to support cowards that are going to put up a Marxist before their own country. Screw you and every thug that plays for you.
Exactly. In fact, speaking of sports, I put both of those, the story from the American Thinker and this other one from ESPN. Apparently the Pac-12, that's our conference out here, is going along with the Big Ten, and they're only going to play in-conference games. They're not going to play any non-conference games, and they don't even know when they're going to start. And I'm like, you friggin' idiots. I was highly pissed off, to be honest, because
sports, be ready, because sports is never going to be the same again, man. It's over. They wrecked it.
I know. It's sad.
There's going to have to be new leagues.
Yeah, and I, like you, I quit watching NFL football, too, because like you, I've been a big Steeler fan for a long time.
We saw
a
start,
at least 3 years.
We saw the beginning. Everyone gets a trophy.
Yeah.
Oh, I know, exactly.
And before you get too hyped up on the Ducks, go to the school and see if they have a Confucius Center.
They already do, and I know it. I know they do. See, the problem is that I
them too.
Go to Duck games when I was a little kid.
So did I. I went to every game there ever was.
But the Pittsburgh College.
Pitt, Penn State. Steelers, Pirates,
both of them.
Penguins. I went to all of them. I even went to a couple soccer or tennis games when we had the
I used to,
Pittsburgh
when I was
Triangles.
in junior high, I used to go to duck basketball.
Right.
That was in the mid-'70s.
I've been to pit basketball too, sure.
Yeah, in the old mat court, not what they've got now. This mat night, or
But you know what? Back then, the backbone of every single one of those sporting events was America.
Exactly.
And it's not anymore, so screw them.
No.
They could you want to market your games to China? Go right ahead. We ought to push you out of our cities and make you play in China and live there. I'd like to see how I'd like to see how LeBron James does in they keep changing the names on me in China. In Beijing. I almost said Peking or Shanghai. But anyway.
The Steelers in Pittsburgh, right? That was the epitome of the working class folks, right?
Yeah.
It was for a long time, yeah.
We still don't have cheerleaders, and it's on purpose. You know what I mean? It was a real hardcore thing. When you went to a game, it was probably going to be snowing or cold or raining, but there was no cheerleaders or no junk like that. There was, for a long time, there was no happy dances in the end zone.
Oh man, that's so fun.
They didn't do that. No, we didn't do that.
Hard hat, lunchbox carrying.
Right. We played football. We didn't bullshit around with dances and stuff like that. And we got rid of people that did. But not anymore, man. Ever since Ben Roethlisberger, boy, I don't know.
Something about Ben, I just don't like him, and
He's
I can't
a rapist.
really say why.
He's
Something
a
about
rapist.
him, I don't like him.
Freaking rapist. That's what it is. But then that's just me.
Oh my God.
That's just me. I mean, well, any guy that won 2 Super Bowls and has to go to college, he's in his 30s, and he has to go to a college down in Georgia and has to have relations with a girl in the men's room or the women's room with police guarding the door. That's, to me, that's a pig. He has all that money. He could have. There's 1,000 beautiful women that would have went with him if he would have invited them to the penthouse of the Bellagio in Las Vegas and done whatever he wanted to do. But he didn't do that. He went down there and forced his ass on some young girl, and I hated the man ever since then.
I thought there was a reason I didn't like him. Now you've given me a better reason to hate that jackass.
Look into it.
Because of that. That's disgusting.
I wrote a hell of an article on that. I'll send it to you.
Okay.
Back when it happened. And final comments, Marlene.
I guess final comments. I did enjoy the interview with John Cornyn.
Wow.
Or O'Connor. I forget which.
O'Connor.
That was great.
Yeah, he is a good guy.
Yeah.
I mixed him up with somebody else. He's great.
Yeah,
he is.
I almost canceled that interview. It was very close. It was very close.
Because to highlight John O'Connor, he's like go-to guest.
Yeah, now he is. Yeah, but I mean, the last time I tried to get him, he didn't answer the phone. And anyway, he's past that. We're good now.
Good. I guess the one last thing is I've been watching what's been going on over in China. And not only are they having floods and all kinds of crazy stuff weather-wise, and their dams are breaking, but I think the Communist Party made me laugh because they were defaulting on some loan payments. Makes me wonder what's going on with these turkeys.
Oh well, they keep manipulating their currency.
Oh yeah, I've been watching the Crossroads with Josh Phillips. He's on YouTube.
All right.
Good guy. I mean, it's straight up reporting. Nope, not a whole lot of bias. Just says this is the way it is, which you don't ever see anymore. And I miss that with regular news.
Right. That's why you come here. But
that's right.
You have a great weekend, Marlene. Thanks for calling.
You too, Hutch. Take care. Bye bye.
Regina, I'm going to get to you in just a second. I want to cover something real quick here, though. First. All right. Let's get down to this one and say. Marlene brought up China, and I want to make sure everybody's online with what's really going on. This is Cold War Radio, and the next breaking story could possibly come from this area. It's entitled, all Apache helicopters delivered to Indian Air Force, some deployed along LAC. This is by Mayank Singh Express News Service out of New Delhi, adding attack capability to the Indian Air Force amidst the continuing standoff along the line of actual control with the Chinese Army. The United States has delivered the final batch of Apache attack helicopters to India. Aviation major Boeing said on Friday it has completed delivery of all AH-64E Apaches. In addition, also all of the CH-47F-1 Chinook heavy lift helicopters have reached India recently. The Boeing said on Friday, that's the translation messing that up, the final 5 of the 22 Apache attack helicopters were handed over to the IAF, Indian Air Force, at Air Force Station Hindon. It added that the delivery of the last 5 of 15 CH-47F Chinook heavy lift helicopters to the IAF was completed earlier in March. India has deployed its fighters, including the Sukhoi 30 MiG-29, 2 from Russia, the Mirage 2000 from France, and Apache attack helicopters from the United States at the frontline bases after the clash between the Chinese and Indian soldiers on June 15th, which resulted in casualties on both sides. The Army had moved forward with tanks and artillery guns to match the Chinese deployments in early May. The Apache is said to be the most modern attack helicopters meant to take place of the existing fleet of Mi-35 choppers meant for assault and anti-armor operations. The AH-64E Apache is designed and equipped with the latest communications, navigation, sensor, and weapon systems. So that's a pretty big deal going forward. It's something that, at the very least, our children ought to be paying attention to, because that looks like it's going to be the next hot spot. Let's welcome Regina from Richmond to the program. Hi, Regina.
Hello, Hutch.
What's on your
Hi,
mind
Regina.
tonight?
I got 2 questions, one for Jack and then one for you, Hutch.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, Jack, the question for you is, have you noticed any change missing?
You mean from the store? I don't really get out a lot to the stores, but if you're talking about change like nickel, dime, quarters, I have seen online where even folks that do YouTube channels on like busting coin rolls and all that are up there saying we can't get any more change. Nobody's touching change. Nobody's using change. It seems like everybody has kept it out and they're using bank cards or whatever for their transactions, or just buying stuff online, which is all electronic. So there's a shortage at banks across the nation, I believe.
Is there? I didn't know that. Was that where you were going, Regina?
Yep, he's on target, because I'm finding that a little bit suspicious, because I want to have my cash on hand. I don't want to be using the debit card all the time.
All right. You shouldn't be forced to it.
I haven't seen anybody that turned down cash yet. Matter of fact, I saw a couple places that turned down cards.
Okay.
But it makes sense it does make sense. I mean, I remember back in the 80s, there was a report that came out that every single bill in the United States inventory, maybe not every single one, but a very large percentage, if you touched it, you got cocaine on your hands.
Yes, I remember.
Remember that? Because that's a cash business right there.
Yeah.
I mean,
okay.
You know, I remember I knew a guy that was.
I knew a guy.
I knew this guy. He was a used car salesman, and he lived up to the personification of that. But he used to sell cars to dealers in the hood, right? And they had a certain protocol that and I might get the denominations wrong, but in Pittsburgh, one of the old bread companies is Town Talk, right? It's not even around anymore, but they still call bread bags Town Talk bags, right? So a regular loaf of bread at your grocery store, and the bag's empty, and you roll up so many bills, and every bag equals $10,000 or $1,000, whatever it was, right?
Okay, that's a good way to do stuff.
And they do that. They do that too. I mean, they wrap them up in gum bands, rubber bands. But he said that that's how they'd buy cars off them. What if
bread bags?
$6,500? Oh, so 6.5 bags, yeah. And they bring 6.5 bags of cash, and he'd have to count it all out and everything, and I don't know, money laundering.
Okay. Now my question for you, Hutch.
Okay, Regina, I'm ready.
Do you know which colleges did Donald Trump send his children to?
I have no idea.
I know Ivanka went to Wharton.
Wharton.
Same school he went to.
Okay.
So I'm guessing if all of his children went to Wharton, then that means that Donald Trump knew what was going on in all the colleges.
I will tell you this. Being a former... Now, I'm a failure, all right? I only have... My last grade of formal education was 9th. That's the last grade I graduated, right? But before that, I went to 2 years at Valley Forge Military Academy. I was a part of the Corps of Cadets. Matter of fact, I was the battery commander's driver when we did parades. I was in the artillery. I was in E battery. And I was a bad kid then. I just was. And I did bad stuff, and I got thrown out, whatever. I got thrown out of every school I was ever in. But I will tell you this.
But you never ratted on anyone, did you?
Not one person. Well, one guy, but, I had to. But anyway, my point is, I went on, I looked at my retiree statement today. Apparently, I did 38 years in the United States Army, right? And nothing that I did in the United States Army was harder than what I did at Valley Forge Military Academy. Nothing. No training, no nothing. Not even Iraq, not Korea, not Honduras, not Guatemala, nothing. Valley Forge Military Academy was harder than all those years. And Donald J. Trump went to 4 years at the New York Military Academy, and he graduated as a 3rd captain. That means he was number 3 in the entire senior class. That means that people used to scrub the floor before he walked on it. And I'm telling you, that's where he got his character, or some of it, was in those 4 years at the New York Military Academy. They can get on him and say that he didn't serve here and he didn't serve there. I don't give a damn. He has that 4 years, and he graduated as a winner. He was almost in the Major League Baseball. He played baseball for the team, and he was a prospect.
Oh, yeah.
But he went with his dad, and he went with business. And thank God for all that he's not just a stupid baseball player, that he's an actually real player.
School of Business served him well, right?
It did, but he plagiarized. Somebody else took the test for him. Just ask his niece.
Oh, that's it. That's the Inquirer news for this week.
Yeah.
It was niece. Yeah, the niece book that came out. Yeah.
So I don't know, but one thing, Regina, that sticks in my mind, listening to Don Jr. when he told whoever the audience was that I was listening, that when he was a teenager, he was driving D9 bulldozers on construction sites. And I jumped up and started clapping and screaming because so was I. You know what I mean? And I was fixing them. I was repairing them. But a D9, there's nothing much like a D9 dozer. You can push over a building. They're fun.
Oh, yeah, and another thing that I was going to mention and stuff like that, a lot of people don't this is why I like history. A lot of people don't know that history. A lot of people don't realize that back in, I guess we call it the older days, a lot of the sons took over things with their fathers.
Right. And you know what? You know what happened?
That's what Donald Trump had to do because his older brother passed away. So that means it was on Donald Trump to come in to be the older child.
Right. And he even says, my brother was the good-looking one. He was the charismatic one. He was the one that was supposed to take charge. But once he went, Donald said, hey, somebody has to do this. We're lucky, man. I swear. I think about this all the time, guys. I'd like to know your opinion. I swear, we are so blessed to have this human being who is in his 70s. I can't walk around without limping. This dude's in his 70s, standing tall and looking good, doesn't have to be there. We're lucky, man.
Big time. Yeah. And if you look at, if we found out during the 2016 campaign that he is, he doesn't drink, take drugs, nothing. And most of that was because of what he saw his brother, right. What took his brother out.
Yeah.
Like you said, his brother was number one son, boom. I mean, for an analogy, I guess you could look at the Kennedy family, right? It wasn't JFK that was supposed to be the one pushed forward. It was Joe Kennedy Jr.
Yep.
And he got lost in the war, I believe. But
he did.
So JFK took the mantle.
One thing I always think of when I think of President Trump is a meme that I saw. And it's Barack Obama comes up to President Trump and says, "Hey, Donald, how do you sleep at night, man?" And the president looks over at Obama and says, "Naked and next to a supermodel, and it's Mr. President to you." And I just like, all right, man, yeah, you win, brother. You win. What else is on your mind, Regina?
Yeah. I just want to say this, that I like calling and talking to y'all because not that many like-minded people in my building here.
Right. I know you got to hang in there. Got to hang in there.
Yeah, so I'm hanging in there.
Don't get yourself hurt or anything. Sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do to keep things to yourself. Sometimes I don't want to see you get into any trouble.
I'm doing pretty well, with my neighbors.
All right.
Yeah. So I'm gonna let y'all go.
All right. You have a great weekend, Regina, and never stop calling.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Here's Regina from Richmond. I'm guessing this is Sal. Is this Sal?
Yes, it is.
All right. What's going on, brother?
All right. Not too much. You guys already talk about coronavirus yet?
No. As a matter of fact, we didn't. Do I have anything?
Okay, I have an unverified story, but I'm going to try to verify it.
Okay.
There's a couple that was waiting in line in Allegheny County to get tested.
Okay.
They got sick of waiting in line, so they left the line. Several days later, they got notices in the mail, and they were not tested that they were positive.
Isn't this? See? I mean, this is so ridiculous. And the thing that really bugs me, and I've said this almost every time I've turned on the Electro Voice RE20 microphone in studio number 1. How about reporting how many people are cured as opposed to how many new cases come up? Because who gives a damn how many new cases there are if they're not going anywhere?
Right.
Well, if you listen to what Sal's saying is they were in line waiting to take the test.
Right. It's all Trump derangement
syndrome. Time
syndrome.
took too much. They already probably filled out a form, but they never got to take the test. They said, "Hey, I got to go home and take care of some business here," and then they get the response in the mail a couple of days later that their test that they never took came up positive.
It's like the cat in Atlanta that was dead for 12 years got a voter registration card. Man, come on, man.
So if that's the case in Allegheny County, we know the numbers are at least exacerbated here for sure.
Yeah, they are, and they everywhere. I mean, and the part that really pisses you off. There's a couple things, but one is the fear that they're putting in people, especially the young, that have not been through the Hong Kong flu and the pig flu and everything else that we've all been through, and we can see this for what it is now. This is a fading pandemic. It's over, folks,
Well,
and you are flipping out.
I want to verify this story. So, again, it's unverified, heard through a second reliable source, but I want to actually get to the bottom of it.
All right.
So I'm going to try to do some homework on this, and I'll report back on Wednesday.
Call us up on same lines as that. Last week, we're talking last weekend, NASCAR had a race. The 7-time former champion Jimmy Johnson was not in that race because he turned himself in and said he was diagnosed with COVID-19. So he was pulled out, and a couple other people on his team were pulled out of last weekend's race. This week, today, in the news, that driver, Jimmy Johnson, and the people on his team were cleared. They had back-to-back negative tests yesterday and the day before, I guess. So they are approved to race this week. This is 7 days or less than 7 days, right?
Yeah, Jack. And I think what we're seeing it on the front end, we're seeing it on the back end when they're doing death certificates, and we're seeing it with stuff like you just mentioned.
Yeah. So, I mean, it used to be what when we first got into this, you were quarantined for 2 weeks, no questions asked, and then you get tested and whatever. What happened with NASCAR with this driver was NASCAR says you have to have 2 back-to-back negative tests, which he had, I guess, Tuesday and Wednesday of this week after sitting out of last week's race because he was positive. All of a sudden, he's clean to go. He's good to go. But NASCAR comes off looking like, all right, all of our people are clean. We've got this thing. And it's like, wait a minute, what? Who's manipulating the numbers? You have tests out there that the president's task, the coronavirus task team had said you can take the test and you will know within 15 minutes, right? So before you even leave the area, you would know whether you're positive or negative. Yet, still in my area, if you go to a place, you're going to have to wait a week and a half before you know if you are positive or negative. It doesn't make sense to me.
Here enters the question: who cares? It's a cold or a flu, depending on what side of the Mississippi you're on.
Cold, coronavirus, cold.
Yeah, right. And so people are going to get it. But hey, Sal, don't wait till Wednesday. Call us back on Monday after you nug that out a little bit.
Yes, sir. I will get on that. All right, you guys take care and have a good
Thanks, Sal.
Yep, you have a great weekend too, sir. My wingman.
All right.
All right, Ken, stand by. I want to cover another story. We're running out of time here, as we always do. But I'm going to get us out of here on time, Jack. I am. I'm going to follow.
What do you got? You got plans?
No, I'm just going to do that. But anyway, if anybody... Oh, Ken, where'd he go? Oh, they probably cut him off. But if anybody has any relations or friends, for instance, my ex-wife was a Puerto Rican woman. So my kids are half Puerto Rican, and we ate a lot of Goya products, which is a Spanish guy that emigrated to Puerto Rico and started a canned food company named Goya, and it's since gone, to $2 billion in sales. And the products are in every single supermarket in the United States of America and across the world. And listen to what he said.
We're all truly blessed at the same time to have a leader like President Trump, who is a builder. And that's what my grandfather did. He came to this country to build, to grow, to prosper. And so we have an incredible builder, and we pray. We pray for our leadership, our president, and we pray for our country that we will continue to prosper and to grow.
Now, you listen to that guy, and there's no broken English. There's no ebonics or anything like that. He's a straight-up guy, one of the most successful businessmen in the United States of Latino descent, with the number one Latino grocery-producing business in the world. And I don't know if you know this, but the United States of America is the second largest Hispanic country on the planet. Number 2. And he controls all the products that these people love and other people love. I love them. Get a bottle of Malta, man. It's delicious. A good alternative to Pepsi.
It's like I always tell anyone that asks me about my time in the military. One of the best things that I remember and the most that I miss about being part of serving the country, whether it be in active duty or in the Guard, was the interaction with the different cultures.
Yeah.
Every race, every creed, all different palates. I mean, if you talk about getting to the stomach, I mean, I love food from around the globe.
So do I. I do too.
There's
Pernil.
maybe.
I mean, you make some pork shoulders and pernil with some rice and beans. Oh boy! And you have to use Goya products to do that. So, you know, the woke Julian Castros, Fidel Castros, and AOC idiots are trying to bark down this guy's tree, and it's not going to work, man. Because I'll tell you what's going to happen tomorrow. Hutch Bailey Jr. is going to go buy some Goya products.
Yeah, it's nice.
I am. I'm literally going to go do that tomorrow.
Every time that happens with somebody in charge of any company, industry, food supplier, whatever, that stands up against this culture of being shouted out and using social media and basically saying, we're going to take you out. You know, he stood there and said, no, I'm not apologizing for shit.
And that's what he did.
Yeah.
He came out, and all of you cowardly pussy white CEOs ought to watch this guy, and you ought to learn from him, because he's more American than you'll ever be. He came out and said, this is suppression of speech. I am not apologizing. Goya Foods CEO Robert Unanue refuses to apologize to the cancel culture mob after he praises President Trump. And you know what he said, Jack? He went to the Obama administration on invitation and did the same thing with Obama. And he said, I'm not going to change. It's the president of the United States of America.
Respect for the office and
Damn right.
the position that it holds. Especially, I mean, you're talking Puerto Rico, right?
Yeah.
Puerto Rico, that with
well,
the
he's like I
devastation-
said, he's Spanish, but Puerto Ricans are the biggest, I think, customers
consumers
of
I
Goya.
mean, we saw
Consumers,
what happened with the leftist in charge there. I mean, with the warehouses full of emergency relief goods that were delivered to Puerto Rico after that devastating hurricane, sitting there.
Scumbags, man.
Sitting there.
Let's go to Ken and King George. Hello, Ken. Thanks for waiting.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that this thing with the Goya products, because you're probably familiar with, I don't know if Wegmans comes out the Pittsburgh way.
No, I've been there. I know Wegmans, but they're not here, but I've seen them further east.
Okay. Oh, Wegmans is, that's a dangerous place.
Okay.
Because they sell some really good stuff. I mean, they have everything in there. And, you know, you can get their Wegmans brand, you can buy a name brand, you can buy, and the place is just, it's like, yeah, it's crack. You know?
It's crack.
Yeah.
I love it. But yeah, you can't go in there and just spend $5.
Right.
But I think it was last summer, these leftist clowns realized that some Wegmans stores sold Trump wine.
Oh, no. Cancel.
Well, they wanted to boycott the hell out of Wegmans, and guess what? You couldn't find a bottle of Trump wine in a Wegmans for almost a month.
Yeah, right. That's how it works. These people are stupid. They're not the smartest individuals out there. I mean, AOC, after hearing this, said that, oh, my, listen here. This is what it sounds like while I'm Googling the recipe for adobo spice. And then some other guy came out behind her and said, damn, if you have to Google the recipe for that, you must not really know what it is. You know, I'm like, yeah, hello.
Oh, I love adobo. In fact, I've got a jar of the Goya adobo seasoning here. It goes great. You put a little black pepper and adobo on some chicken, throw it on the grill. Oh, man. It's amazing. Yeah.
Indeed. I have nothing against Goya. I mean, I'm not a real big black bean dude, but I love beans and rice and beans. You got to say it the right way. You know,
I like the ham hocks and beans.
That's good too.
You know,
right? The legumes. So what else is going on, Ken?
So today, we're about at the end of our contract, so I had to renew my badge today, right?
Your
so they
cat
gave us a
card.
90-day extension. So I go in, do all the stuff online, blah, 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 you know. I go to schedule an appointment to renew my card. Well, because they're having some issues at some of the other bases in the area, they're sending everybody down here, which overwhelms the system, and there's nothing in July. But they said if you call over, you can do kind of a pencil-in, walk-in thing. All right. So they asked me when my card expires. All right, it expires close to the end of July. And then I get this, have you come in contact with anybody that's had this virus? Are you sick? Have you traveled outside of the country or the state? And I'm like, when the hell is it become illegal to, travel outside of
This
the
is
state?
the
I'm like,
dangerous. This is the dangerous part, and this is the part where everybody needs to pay attention to these tracking. What do they call them, Jack? Tracing units.
the contact tracers.
These people ought to be crushed. They should be abolished.
It's almost like the people asking that question is hoping that you will answer it falsely because they already have the location data from your cell phone.
Nobody's going to answer it truthfully.
Like, no, I went down to North Carolina, right?
Oh, bad answer.
How did you get there?
Bad answer. Bad answer. Lie, man. You got to lie.
I was like, they're like, well, how'd you get there?
I'm getting ready to get the explicit tag.
No,
there.
like we drove a truck. Was it your own personal truck?
They got the data from your truck too already to testify against you.
I'm like, really? No, I watched the '70s movie. And I hitchhiked down there. I showed a little leg,
Oh yeah.
But
because you like to see the little black kids play with your leg hair, and like Joe Biden.
Wait, no.
My hair doesn't turn blonde in the sun. But all right. So I go over there today. Right?
Corn pop.
All right. They gave me an appointment at 11:30. All right, cool. So I show up at 11:15 because you never want to show up late for this thing because it just becomes a nightmare. So I'm sitting in the parking lot, and they told me, all right, knock on the door. Well, there's already a couple people up there, with the whole mask and thing, And that was another thing. They were like, you got to wear a mask if you come in the building. Shit. All right. I got it.
You still don't have a mask in your truck, man. You still don't have one in your truck.
So I ended up buying one off the kid that's running a sweatshop and some shit.
Bangladeshi mask.
But anyway, this guy finally comes to the door, and I'm like, oh, shoot, man, let me run up here real quick. And I'm standing, like good 10 feet away. Don't have the mask on. And he's like, can I help you? I'm like, yeah, I got to pencil in for 11:30, right? So we're like, all right, cool. I was like, well, I'm just going to stay in my vehicle, I said, because I can't breathe with this damn mask on. All right, yeah, that's fine. So then this woman comes out.
You know what you should have done? You should have said, like, well, hold on. Hold on. I'll be right in.
I didn't want to. No, you don't want to mess with these. Okay, even before this whole incident, you don't want to mess with the people that did your access card.
Right. I know.
You've been there.
I'm retired. I'm retired. I can say shit like that.
Be very, very focused. If somebody decides to start naming this Captain Trips, just an FYI.
But anyway, so I'm the next person in line. So I'm standing out on the front porch, and there's a nice breeze blowing, and it's, I'm in the shade. This woman comes out. She goes, "Well, you can come in and sit in this seat." She goes, "But you're gonna have to put your mask on." I said, "She goes, but it's gonna be about 5 or 10 minutes." I said, "Can I just stand out here?" I said, "Good," because I can't breathe with this damn thing on my face. She was like, "Well, I thought because of the humidity." I was like, "No, the humidity I can deal with, which there wasn't any. There was a nice breeze blowing, but I'm like, this entire thing." So then I get in there, they go to take my picture, and I'm like, "Well, how the hell are they going to do this?" "Well, you need to take your hat and your mask off so we can take the picture." And I'm like, "So why the hell did I have to wear this thing the whole time I was in here?"
And that's why the whole common sense thing is out the window with all this. And I think everybody is starting to realize that. I mean, it's a fading, I know, but they will. It's a fading pandemic that is guaranteed to be gone by November 3rd. Guaranteed. But they're playing it out.
I don't know about the 3rd, but the 4th definitely is the gun.
Whatever.
The 4th
election day.
Cease to exist, huh?
All right, Ken. Ken, your final comments. I got a couple things I got to do, and I got Jack on a union contract over.
Jack still owes me
Union, not ain't doing it, no stinking union.
Have a great weekend, Ken.
Yeah, Jack, you still owe me a beer in Colonial Beach somewhere. I'll buy it.
I hear you.
He owes you a beer and you'll buy. All right, see ya. All right, so I got a couple stories I want to talk about here. I got one from Tucker Carlson. I'm going to hold on that one. I'm going to move to New York. This is foul, man. This is just completely foul. And I hate to say it because New York is definitely used to be pretty much the center of the United States, and it's not anymore. I mean, New Yorkers have been flocking in their droves to enjoy European-style outdoor dining at some of their favorite haunts ever since the city entered Phase 2 of its coronavirus reopening plan last month. The move has provided some much-needed income for restaurant and bar owners that were forced to shutter back in March. But with more food being eaten outdoors, the areas are also attracting huge rats. Restaurant owners are urging city officials to tackle what is fast becoming a new public health issue. New York City diners forced onto the sidewalks at restaurants are now being attacked by rats as restaurateurs beg the city to tackle its sanitation problem. Giacomo Romano, owner of Ciccio, an Italian restaurant in Soho, told NBC New York one of his customers had an unfortunate encounter with a rat while enjoying a meal in the outdoor dining area. Last night, a customer had a baby rat running on his shoe, and I let you just imagine his reaction, he said. Romano, all right, Ben. Oh, God. Willard. Romano, whose restaurant has been open in Lower Manhattan for 7 years, said the rats are coming out of nearby Father Fagan Park, a popular spot for city dwellers to relax. He pointed out that there is only one trash can for the entire park, and people opting for takeout and picnics in the park are throwing garbage in the area because that's what city dwellers do. I added that. There are a lot of new holes in the ground covered by the plants, he told NBC New York. A park goer also said they had seen several rats in the area while they were sitting on a bench. And I got to tell you, mixing New York City citizens with sanitation is some stupid shit to do. That place
who was sitting on the bench?
That place
with
is
the rats,
a sewer.
like,
That's a sewer.
Conspiring while they were sitting on the bench?
Nah, these people, they throw the garbage on the street. It's how they roll. Go to a city. Go to any city. I'll tell you a story. Master Sergeant Stroud and I, my former battle buddy who has gone full left, were in St. Louis one night, and we went to Church's Chicken, one of my favorite fast food places.
Church's Fried Chicken.
And delicious, man. They got corn on the cob, and you get a jalapeno pepper with every meal. But we went in there, and we ordered to eat in. And in the drive-thru, a family came up in a station wagon and ordered, we thought they were getting it to go. But they ordered a couple buckets of chicken, and they got it, and they drove over to the parking lot. And they sat there, and they ate it. And every time they got finished with a bone, the bone went out the window. So there's a pile of bones at 4 windows of this car. You think the rats didn't notice that? Sickening, man. People are just pigs, man. They are. A lot of them. And that's primarily coming from Stroud's analysis, but it's true. I watched it. It was true. I saw it happen.
I feel for you, Hutch, that's in your memory bank. You know, the church.
No, it was funny to me. That was a comedy.
I
thing.
know, but you saw it. You had to.
I saw that. Yeah, I saw that. It's in there forever. This is human nature. This is how people are in the city. They don't give a darn about anything but themselves. It's the way city people are. That's why nobody should live in any city.
Hey, the rats knew, as the humans knew, that Church's Fried Chicken was on point. Bones.
That was a good place. That was a good spot to be, man. I'm telling you. That was all right. I got one more story. I know we're late. I got one more story, though, and it's kind of important. We got another U.S. Army problem, Jack. Why is the U.S. Army calling its commander-in-chief's campaign slogan white supremacist? I talked about purging these communist officers at the beginning of the show, and I'll bring you back to that right now. After a slew of pieties from the U.S. Army generals about the importance of the military being all nonpartisan, remember the general who apologized for accompanying Commander-in-Chief President Trump to a looted, burned church last June? What goes on the inside is a heck of a different story. According to military.com, the Army has pulled a handout meant to promote meeting on diversity in the ranks that lists President Donald Trump's Make America Great Again slogan as a possible indicator of covert white supremacist sympathies. Jack, anybody that did that should be immediately removed from any Army leadership.
Would never have that. I mean, we've discussed how much time is wasted in our armed forces, trying to desensitize or awake the military to be in tune with the woke movement. And we've basically said, you're basically taking training time away from our bravest folks that volunteer for our armed forces
to learn
training
lethality.
Right?
They should be learning lethality.
Yes.
And they're not. In a statement late Wednesday, the Army said that the flyer distributed to troops and contractors at Redstone Arsenal in Alabama was sent out in error. Oh, the cowardly bastards. And an Article 15.6 fact-finding investigation has begun to determine how it happened. That's the cover-up, folks.
Right.
And the material was meant to promote meetings at Redstone as part of the Army's Project Inclusion, an effort by Army Secretary Ryan McCarthy and Army Chief of Staff Cowardly General Joseph McConville to improve diversity, equity, and inclusion across the force and build cohesive teams. Let me translate that to downplay any white people's involvement. Project Inclusion involved listening sessions at bases worldwide for troops and civilians on issues such as racial disparities and the Army's move in August to remove photos from officers' promotion boards, according to the service. So now fat fucks like General Milley can get promoted because nobody sees how fat they are. The promotional material sent in emails included an illustration of a pyramid of phrases labeled things to think about. Yeah, we're thinking about what a mess the U.S. military has become, that it could be so disrespectful of its commander-in-chief and the 63 million Americans who voted for President Trump. And this, folks, is what I was telling you at the beginning of the show. They're out to get us. Don't worry about Trump. They're out to get us. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff made an abject apology for walking with President Trump to Lafayette Park and its burned church with "I should not have been there. My presence at that moment and in that environment created the perception of the military involved in domestic politics." No, it didn't. It made you look like a mess sergeant, you slob. That's what it made you look like, you moron. What the heck does he call this? We already know that the Pentagon's sanctimonious leadership is full of wokesters. President Obama purged officers deemed not politically woke enough to him and seeded the flag ranks with his communist loyalist, General Milley. The rot now seems to extend through the ranks because, seriously, who would put out something like this without thinking about the potential for disrespecting one's coworkers, one's commander-in-chief, and decent people everywhere by labeling them white supremacist for disagreeing with socialism? Decent people don't do that. Decent people know how to keep politics out of whatever project they're doing in a professional setting. It's not that hard, but not for this crew, which must have been steeped in a groupthink culture of Trump hate and decided it could take the power to project it. And yet still, anyone sane would have not done this if even for self-preservation's sake. What glee could be worth the little thrill some creep like Milley got from sneaking in President Trump's campaign slogan into the list of racist no-nos, despite the many black and brown people who are President Trump's supporters? Except that it wasn't just slipped in. Multiple people would have seen it before it went to press, suggesting a full-blown culture of corruption.
Suggesting.
We need
Right.
a purge. We need a purge.
Right. It is more than evident. Like the paragraph said that President Obama's purged officers, he was allowed to go willy-nilly and boom, 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 take out his targets because the mainstream media was fully behind what he was doing to our country. He was weakening our military. He was
Indeed.
weakening our military leadership. He was taking away the assets that our fighting men and women need on the field, at the same time provoking new avenues to put these folks into harm's way. President Trump, since day one, has been trying to minimize. I mean, look what he did with ISIS. There's the battle line. Boom, take them out. They're gone. Here's this. Here's that. Here's the Taliban. Okay, let's talk to these folks. They said, no, there ain't no way in hell that the president should sit down and talk with the Taliban. The same way that the president should not talk with Kim Jong-un as he has done during his presidency. These folks that are against what President Trump is trying to do,
just look at John
are
Bolton.
enemies to you and me.
They are. And if your kids are in the military, people like John Bolton and General Milley, these people ought to be crucified. They ought to be, I'm telling you, there has to be a purge. The military is so broke right now, and I'm so glad I'm not in it anymore. I can't believe what's going on now. I really can't. But there is an easy fix. The president is the commander-in-chief. And, Jack, I have a feeling if you looked at the president's itinerary, he went to SOCOM today. He went down to Florida to the Southern Command. And I'm going to bet people will retire in the morning. I hope. I hope he's smart. I know he has the military acumen to do it. I explained his collegiate experience at New York Military Academy. Or maybe that was high school. I'm not sure. But whatever it is, he understands the chain of command.
Can you imagine being President Trump over these last 4 years? Can you imagine?
No, I can't. I can't
how
at all.
many avenues of any particular venue, whether it's education, whether it be healthcare, whether it be the military, whether it be domestic issues, to see how many roadblocks, how many legal actions are taken against you when all you're trying to do is make this country better than it was left when you took office. We saw the results.
I don't
of that
think
in the economy.
I think President Trump was flabbergasted, but let's be honest, Jack, weren't you? Because I sure was. I didn't know. I knew from being part of the deep state that it was there, but I had no idea that it was so far left and so ingrained. I had no idea that the DOJ and every other single agency in the United States federal government located in Washington, D.C. was a leftist organization. And that's where we are right now. 90-some% of citizens of Washington, D.C. voted for Hillary Clinton. Once you see that, it's time to blow up D.C. It's time to put a bomb right in the middle of D.C. and light it. And boom, now it's gone. And let's put the different agencies in different areas. Let's decentralize this. And I have a feeling, because I've listened to the Department of the Interior Secretary say it, we need to relocate these agencies. And he's totally right. And the Pentagon is one of them that needs to be relocated. It needs to be purged first. Every single general above 2 stars needs to be fired. Not fired, retired. Under national emergency, you're all fired. You're all retired. You're done. Never to be in the government again. Never to be a consultant or anything. And then we need to start over with the new officers. And then we probably need to fire a wave of them too, just to keep them on track. And let the colonels run the goddamn thing, because the generals suck.
I mean, when is the last time that
we won a war? That would be in 1945, Jack.
Let's just talk about what you're talking about rank-wise. When's the last time you have seen Lieutenant Colonel, a.k.a. Spooky on Twitter, Lieutenant Colonel Schaefer, on any mainstream media show? During the 2016 election and just past the election, he was on. He was on Fox News quite a bit.
Right.
Think about it. When's the last time you've seen him on there? No, I've heard him on radio shows, appearances here and there. But as far as being a pundit or a spokesperson, he's not a pundit. He speaks the truth.
Right.
So they don't want the truth on the air, so they don't have him on as a guest.
That's true.
The same with
maybe we're gonna have
another
to get him on.
Lieutenant Colonel Alan West, former congressman. I
right.
saw he was at a university confronting college kids and basically on Islam, and he was challenged on it by somebody who was of the faith, a Muslim, and he basically said, "You want to go down the history of this religion with me? We could do that. Let's start here." And it ended up. But when's the last time you've seen MSM bring Lieutenant Colonel retired Alan West on as a spokesman for any type of position, as an expert, which he is, right? They keep it silence for one reason. You have the idiots on there, the same ones will channel you. Their job is to herd you into one position. You are too dumb to know everything, so you are pushed into voting emotionally for the left.
Yeah,
right?
No question. All right, I got one more. I appreciate you sticking around here. I got one more.
I'm here for the folks, man.
I know you are. I know you are. I got one more story, and this is a tough one, man. Out in Seattle, the city government out there, and I'm a little torn here because I have family in the city right next to Seattle, Tacoma. And they're all white. The whole family, they're all white. And that's not the truth for all my family.
It's kind of tough to even sit there and say, I believe this. It's just what
I know.
hits you, right?
Yeah, this is bad, man. I mean, my whole family's not white, but this portion of my family is completely white, and they're racist and they're Democrats. But I don't care about that, because now I'm thinking of these kids that these kids are having that have to grow up in this environment that has been created by these white leftists, like my brother. Tucker Carlson, who is, well, we'll get to that in a second, but just a really courageous guy, talks about what they're doing in Seattle. Let's listen.
So here's a thought experiment for you. Oklahoma City is one of the most conservative metro areas in the United States. Donald Trump won almost 60% of the vote there 4 years ago. Imagine if the conservatives who presumably run local government in Oklahoma City sent an email to every African-American municipal employee telling them to report to a special meeting. Imagine that when those employees arrived, again, black employees only, nobody else allowed, they were informed that the fact they were black was deeply offensive. In fact, it was a kind of crime. And the only way to atone for the sin of their blackness was to apologize for it. Apologize for being born black, and then work to shed all traces of your black identity. Stop spending so much time around your black friends. Stop repeating things your black parents told you growing up. Start admitting out loud that you hate yourself for having black skin. Imagine if that actually happened in this country. What would you think of it? You'd be horrified, obviously. It's completely disgusting. It is immoral to attack people for how they were born. It's always immoral. And by the way, it's also illegal. The Justice Department would never tolerate something like that. The Civil Rights Division would shut down the program tonight and would bring criminal charges against the people who ran it. And you would applaud them as they did that, and we would too. So with that in mind, consider what is happening right now in one of America's most liberal cities, Seattle. 4 years ago, Hillary Clinton got 87% of the vote in Seattle. There aren't many places more loyal to the Democratic Party. Recently, the city of Seattle summoned its white employees, and only its white employees, to a meeting and then informed them that their skin color is a crime. The city called this anti-racism training. Events like it are taking place all over the country right now in schools, local governments, corporations, the military. The city of Seattle named its training session Interrupting Internalized Racial Superiority and Whiteness. Chris Rufo of City Journal wanted to know exactly what went on in a meeting like that, so he filed a public records request. Here's what he found. White employees in Seattle were informed that their so-called white qualities were offensive and unacceptable. Those qualities included perfectionism, objectivity, and individualism. The employees were told to stop exhibiting these characteristics, and instead they were ordered to undertake, quote, the work of undoing your own whiteness. In order to achieve that, in order to erase the traits they were born with, white employees in Seattle were ordered to give up the following. They were ordered to give up comfort. They were ordered to give up spending time with their family. They were ordered to give up guaranteed physical safety, control over other people and the land, relationships with some other white people, niceties from neighbors and colleagues, and, quote, the certainty of your jobs. Prepare to be unemployed, pale employees of Seattle. Your skin color disgusts us. All of that actually happened in Seattle. Check out Chris Rufo's new piece in City Journal if you want more details on it. But again, atrocities like this aren't just happening in Seattle, they're happening everywhere. Some will almost certainly happen in your kid's school this fall. No one will ask your permission before they do it. They'll just attack your children for how they were born. The people doing the attacking, by the way, would tell you with a straight face how opposed they are to gay conversion therapy because, of course, it's immoral to try to change people's intrinsic qualities. They wouldn't see the irony in that. More likely, they don't care about irony. This isn't about principles. It's about hate, humiliation, and power. It is about hurting people. It always is. Telling people they're inferior because of their skin color was wrong when it happened 60 years ago in Alabama. It is every bit as wrong when it happens today in Seattle, or at Yale, or Google headquarters, or at your kid's elementary school. Attacking people on the basis of their race is a sin. There is nothing worse for a country. They can try to disguise it with Orwellian terms like anti-racism, but this is the purest kind of race hate. It will destroy America faster than anything else. Don't put up with it. Resist. Speak out. Fight back. This is totally wrong. Until you stand up, it will continue.
It will, Jack. I mean, it's not going to end until we force it.
I mean, how amazing is that? I mean, just that. If he didn't have a source for it, I'd be like, that's BS. There's no way that a city government would call in all of the white employees.
And it's not just Seattle. I mean, this is in a lot of places. That's unbelievable.
That's
this is
to begin with, right?
No, it's not racist. It's cowardice. It's cowardice. White people are cowards. The white people that we have in power right now are cowards, and they need to be replaced with people that understand how a country works.
Disclaimer to all the listeners. I am 50% Asian, Okinawan to be exact. So I can't, don't take it as I am white. I am Asian.
There's nothing wrong with being
but
white.
You know what I'm saying? I am 100%
You're not fucking Asian.
Red,
you're not
white, blue American.
You're not Asian. You're Okinawan.
Right.
Asia is a continent, man. Stop that. Asian is there's white people and black people and Orientals
Okinawa.
in Asia. Asia is a continent, and it drives me crazy when white people try to say Asian is an ethnicity, because it's not. Asian is a political demarcation zone of a country, of a continent, not a country, a continent. There's no such thing as Asian. Asian is as ethnic as Islam. There's no ethnicity in either one. Just my point, man, because I tend to love the English language.
It gets all confused when people
I'm not
start
confused.
to try to label people, right? You know?
Yeah. But actually, if you're Okinawan, you're Japanese, right?
No, actually, I'm Okinawan because Japan conquered and took over Okinawa. Okinawa was like a little island out there chilling.
I love it.
So
you're right.
And one of the most
you hear what I'm saying, though. You hear what I'm saying.
Yeah. It's silly in this day and age when they're trying to create a one world global governance that we actually have the ability with the technology today to be able to interact with all folks across the globe. True. We can still have our own separate countries and our own way of governing our own individual nations, but still enjoy the opportunities to enjoy the cultures of
everyone. I was brought up with a 1963 Encyclopedia Britannica set that I read in my third floor bathroom every chance I got because I didn't have a TV, and it showed me that there was Caucasoids, Occidentals, and Orientals, and it was really weird, man. But it was much easier than dealing with today's verbiage of Asians and people of color, because white people have color.
I remember that term.
They have color, Mongoloids. But anyway, all right, so let's get away from that. A good show tonight, sir. I appreciate it. We didn't go too long.
Out on Friday nights. And our guest tonight, man, you nailed a good one. Mona, thank you very much. We love this, man.
I'm going to tell her
John
that, too.
O'Connor.
I'm going to say, please make this our legal guy, and we'll see what she does with it. But because she got mad. I was like, he didn't answer the last time. When didn't he answer? Anyway, it worked out well. It was a great interview.
He may have just wasn't in the room when we called this thing,
You heard him panting when he got on the phone, man. I mean, he was dying. He must have ran from the basement to the third floor.
The Peloton crowd is, you got to catch him when you can catch him.
All right, Jack, I know nobody can get in touch with you on social media. You have been blacked out.
I've
Did you get the parlor yet? Did you get the parlor yet?
No. I have issues with that. But hey, I encourage anyone that is willing, that is hooked on Twitter and wants to separate themselves from a platform that will shut your voice down if they deem necessary. Head on over to Parler, right?
There you go. All right, so we'll catch you
winners and losers
next Friday. No. All right, stop the music. Come on, motherfucker, stop. All right, winners and losers.
Winners and losers all came from the same television show on Monday of this week on CNN. Don Lemon. Terry Crews on. Terry Crews is, I would consider him a liberal, supports Democrats, but he came on Monday night after all of the murders and the killings. It was half a dozen children that were murdered,
Chicago,
black kids murdered over the weekend, and he came on Don Lemon's show on Monday and basically said, hey, black people, we need to point the spotlight at our own communities because we're killing too many of our own.
And the white commentator, Don Lemon, said what?
Yes. So Terry Crews, my winner this week for doing that, even though he's on the left side. The loser, Don Lemon, basically told him, oh, wait a minute, Terry. Wait a minute. The Black Lives Matter movement was formed to oppose or fight against police brutality and the murdering of black folks. If you, Terry Crews, want to highlight black on black murder, violence, you should start your own movement.
Wow.
Think about that, folks.
Yeah.
He said it right on television.
Winner.
My winner's Terry Crews for getting on there.
Loser, sorry.
Loser is Don Lemon. It was the same two people.
Oh, all right. You did it all in one.
Yeah.
I just blew that all to hell.
It's okay. The folks heard it.
All right. So my loser is Anthony Fauci. This asshole, President Trump should put him in prison somewhere. I mean, just don't let him ever come out and say anything again. He's got everything wrong he's ever done in his entire career, and he's still getting a paycheck, and he's still getting on television. This asshole should be totally disbanded, denigrated, and held accountable for what he's done to the United States of America between his AIDS and coronavirus malfeasance.
He's trying to make bank on the remdesivir deal,
Of course
right?
he is. Of course he is. He's a skunk, and he has wanted. I would take you back to when we were younger, Jack, when we were facing the AIDS, homosexual hemophiliac, homosexual hemophiliac disease, and he made every one of us in our early 20s terrified of any bodily fluids of any kind. He terrified us. The son of a bitch ought to be in prison somewhere. And yet he keeps coming out. That's the loser of this week. The winner is Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson is one of the most brave, courageous journalists in American history. And I don't know how long he's going to last at Paul Ryan's network at the Fox News channel. I just don't.
He's still number one in his time slot.
It doesn't matter. So is Bill O'Reilly.
But Bill O'Reilly was, safe. He didn't knock down barriers and, speak truth.
No, he was not near as good as Tucker Carlson. Tucker is my American hero right now, and I pray that he continues to have a voice because he's got the best voice, in my opinion, ladies and gentlemen of Cold War Radio. I just think that. But other than that, man, it's been a great week. Hope you had a great week, brother.
Another week.
Going back to the music. Here's the music.
What happened? Oh, there we go. We're tuning out.
Yeah,
hey,
I messed it up the first time.
If you missed out on the president's 4th of July speech
at Mount Rushmore,
do not follow the media news on that. Go watch it yourself. You'll be inspired if you are red, white, blue, and American.
My Okinawan brother. Thanks for coming on the show tonight, man. What a great show. Great interview. Can't wait to hear you next Friday.
Yep.
Thanks
next
for coming
Friday,
on,
I might introduce the chopstick diet.
All right, man.
If you want to lose weight and you've never used chopsticks, you will go hungry using the chopsticks, baby.
Jack, my Ichiban, #1 son. My man. Thanks for coming on the show, brother. Go to rsbn.bandcamp.com. Support Jacob Seals, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be back on Monday. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed the show. I'm Hutch Bailey Jr., and I'm back out.
Bye.